All right, we go ahead and call to order. We'll start out with asking Ms. Donna if she would do the invocation, please. However you feel comfortable.
Holy Spirit, in the name of Jesus, bless today's meeting. Bless what we're going to talk about. Give us your wisdom, your knowledge, and your understanding. Thank you that we are here today to discuss these objects, these items, and your will be done. And let us have an orderly meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, if we could stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one, indivisible. Okay, moving into any remarks from any visitors today? Okay, adoption of minutes. 5.1, discuss and consider approval of minutes from the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Power Center Board meeting on July 3rd, 2023.
I'll make the motion.
I got a first. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving right into 6.1. Discuss TIRZ number 1, financial report.
Good afternoon, Chairman and board members. Dora, can you go to, there we go. To the financial, I'm sorry. Can you go, there you go, okay. If you look at on page 6 of your packet, you'll see the May financial report for the TIRZ number 1. In May, we have not received any income. The city has received the tax collections. The transfers just have not been made to that account yet. Those will be made, and you'll see that in June. We do have a few expenditures for a total of $47,482. Year to date, we've spent $712,665. So we're at 24% of budget. But again, you will see those transfers next month. So we'll have a better idea of how much money we actually have at that point. If you go to page 7, this is our Terrell TIF, basically the property the property values and the amounts that we have received in the TIF this year. This is for tax year 2022. You can see the amount due to be collected, or what we've collected actually through April 20th. We've collected $1,614,877.89 for the city. And in the county portion, we have received $393,451.56. So the total due to be paid out at this point is $1,148,272.36. Hal Jones, our consultant that normally does all of these calculations for us, he unfortunately had an accident and had to retire this year, and so I kind of had to pick up where he left off. So it took me a little longer to get all of this done, but it is done at this point. So we will be making payments on that in July, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on that.
I have a question, Dawn.
Yes, ma'am.
Due to be paid from receipts. So this total for TIF through April, after we get all of the money, is going to be $1,148,272.36.
That's actually what we have now that will be paid out. We will still receive some taxes, some that paid late from the county. We'll still receive some of that, and then we'll calculate that again and pay that out with our next year's payment. But we'll go ahead and pay out what we have now currently.
From that 1 million,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Now, don't use, it's not late from the county, it's just we pay.
Right, they're late taxpayers, yes.
I was like, man.
Yes, the taxpayers that pay late after the due date, after the October, November, December timeframe, yes. Whenever we've received that from the county, we will put that into next year's payment.
If no more questions, we'll move into 6.2, discuss the Power Center financial report.
Yes, if you look on page 8 in your packet, you can see that for May 2023, we have not made, we haven't collected any revenue at this point. We haven't paid out anything this month either. Year-to-date, we've paid out $195. We will again see those tax collections in June. Those transfers will be made, and you'll have that information on your June financial. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. The PC Power Center administrative costs, is that for your staff, for the city staff?
That is for, no, that is for, we contract with P3 Works to administer and handle all of the documents, all of the reports and all of that throughout the year, and that will be paid from that line item.
That's all.
Okay.
Okay, we can move into 6.
I've got one more page, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
okay.
If you go to the next page, page 9, again, this is what, for tax year 2022, this is what we've received in the Power Center. The total that we have collected this year is $783,271.99. And out of that, we will be paying $699,135.59. And again, you'll see that on your July financial report. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the money left over from the payout, we paid out $699 from $783. That extra money goes where?
It stays in that account. It stays in that Power Center account.
Thank you, that's all.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, moving into 6.3, discuss downtown update.
Good afternoon, Chairman and board members. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the activities that have been going on downtown. A little update from our Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation and some of the projects that they have funded, and then also maybe go over some budget recommendations for fiscal year 24. Just trying to give you a little heads up of all of the programming that's been going on. You want me to use this? Okay. For Paddock in fiscal year 2023, they did decide to pay down some of their reserve funds, some of the projects that we have implemented that will be finished by the end of fiscal year 23 is downtown rooftop lighting. That will be the installation, and the city will take over the maintenance and electricity costs for rooftop lighting for our downtown core between Rockwall and Virginia for all of our downtown buildings. The Downtown Building Code and Preservation, this is an assessment that we're having done by our architect that has been working with Paddock for the past 2 or 3 years to get a true inventory of our existing buildings, some of the leasability concerns that we may have whenever we're trying to find tenants. It's going to be a good avenue for us to put together some grant programs through the Paddock, just so we can get some background information on the buildings, especially when we have potential tenants looking for a particular piece of property. We'll have a full list of the square footage, the minimum standards or the minimum renovations that would have to be done to a building to bring it up to code. If we wanted to prepare more buildings with grease traps so we can have more restaurants, it's just going to be a good inventory for the Paddock so that they can start working with the property owners. The last project for downtown that they're most excited about is in conjunction with the Complete Streets program, which we'll be talking about here in just a little bit, which is going to be the Highway 80 Spur 226 project with TxDOT, which is years down the road. They're requesting that the city council allow them to move forward with a design plan so that we can go ahead and implement some of those landscape items in our current downtown where it wouldn't be anything that has to be moved. We'd like to go ahead and get some trees planted. We need some planters updated. They're wanting to fix the irrigation system through our downtown. And so working with the same design group that's doing the Highway 80 and Spur 226, we're able to marry those two projects so that we can go ahead and get some of those elements downtown.
It's Spur 226 project. What, did I miss a meeting, or is that?
As part of the Complete Streets with TxDOT, we've talked about the thoroughfare Highway 80 and then also Virginia Spur 226, making those complete street compliance.
Is the
Yes.
road 34?
Yes, yeah, we call it Spur 226 so that TxDOT will keep admitting it's their road.
And
Right.
another thing, before you get too far, downtown building code and preservation. I know this the PIT or the TIRZ? This is the TIRZ, right? Downtown.
Within the TIRZ 1, yes, sir.
Okay, now, TIRZ 1, does it go all the way over to like the old Carnegie Library?
I'd have to look at the boundary of TIRZ 1. I think it's it's all of the CBD, which goes to the Carnegie, because we've listed. Right, but the Paddock did list the Carnegie building specifically in their assessment. So this is an assessment that Paddock is paying for, and so they specifically listed that Carnegie
Okay, well,
facility.
it's building and preservation, I just didn't know
Yeah.
if Carnegie Library was actually within the lines, the border lines.
Yeah, what we're really wanting with this assessment is some narratives so that we can start applying for THC grants. We have a lot of structural damage, obviously, to our downtown buildings, as well as the Carnegie Building, Old City Hall. And so having some of this background information will allow us to be eligible for more of those brick and mortar type grants than just facades. They've kind of switched their intent to make sure that the Paddock is putting money into buildings that are structurally sound. So, any other questions on that? So looking forward into next fiscal year, just some of their ideas and budget items that they'll be preparing for next year. I'll be talking to you about the 2 downtown parking lot. They are they're requesting a cost share with TIRZ on the downtown parking lots at the corner of Virginia and Moore. They have committed to doing one side of Moore, and you will be receiving a request, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The landscape project itself, they have budgeted $500,000 to complete the installation, irrigation repair, and all of the planning. And so the planning would be scheduled for the fall of 2023, and so that would be completed right after the first of the fiscal year. They are putting aside more money for developer incentive grants. They're changing from, like I said, from just a facade grant to make sure that they've got money set aside to really help property owners get buildings up to code so that we can start preserving the buildings themselves. And they have also dedicated additional funds to continue the design expense for the Complete Streets project, which is Highway 80 and Spur 226. So those are just some of the highlights for downtown specifically.
I have a question about downtown parking. You said on the corner of Virginia and Moore. So that is where the Queen's Donut used to be?
Yes.
So
and
that's
also,
going to be a parking lot.
yes, and I've got some pictures of that coming up. So we'll go over that in just a second. Looking forward to some funding considerations that might be coming your way for fiscal year 24. Like I said, we'll talk about the downtown parking. I've got some exhibits here to show you. The downtown project office line item remains the same. Last year, you contributed $300,000 for demolition in your budget. So we've gone in and we've cut that budget. By the end of this fiscal year, we would have gotten most of the potential town square area cleared with brush removal, and we're down to the maintenance of the land itself. We'll have one building left for fiscal year '24, and then we will have one additional building not until fiscal year '26. So we have gone in and requested that budget be reduced. However, we're requesting an additional line item for downtown maintenance and operations, which will be just the minor repairs. Paddock can do capital improvements, but we're requesting that TIRZ maybe pick up a portion of those minor repairs, such as the brick repair downtown, where we need drainage cleanups, the parcel maintenance, downtown grooming, trash pickup, those types of things once the capital projects are complete. Oh, sorry. Dawn. Is it on? Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Wanted to give you a little update on the land acquisition. As you know, the TIRZ part of your borrow in the last 2 years was for some of the land acquisition for the potential town square. So I wanted to highlight what we have completed and say formally in a meeting that this is the end of it. We get a lot of phone calls and a lot of questions, but the highlight in green is the actual proposed town square portion. The lots along the railroad spur, those are Union Pacific parcels. We've actually closed on 2 of the 7, so we're moving forward with those Union Pacific parcels. And now we are down to just maintaining the green space. My next slide is I'm sorry. We'll talk about parking lots real quick, and then I'm going to go back to the land so that I can kind of explain to you what the timeline is going to look like with the land.
Before you do that, can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
So this is between Newton and Broad
Yes, ma'am.
and
Francis
and Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this property has been acquired by the city.
Yes, ma'am.
And okay, that's a question I'll ask later. Thank you.
Sure. Talking about the parking lots, this is a proposed parking lot on the south corner of Moore and South Alley. We're proposing straight line concrete. We would, of course, incorporate the landscape project that Paddock is also doing. The brick that you see down on the map, right-hand side, that would be stamped concrete, and that's also where we're going to have another mural placed along Houston Smith's wall there. So this is approximately, we've moved some and tried to add some trees. So on this side, we're looking at approximately 15 to 20 parking places. We definitely know that there'll be some directional items that will have to be addressed when and if South Alley was to go one direction, which would be from west to east along South Alley, once we go and start working on quiet zones, which I'll also be updating you on here in a little bit. But here is a concept plan of the parking lot. This is the parking lot along North Alley and Moore Avenue. This is where the Queen's Donuts site is. Again, we're looking at approximately 20 parking spaces, and we would incorporate the landscape here on this site as well. As you notice here, the drainage map before you, this kind of highlights the area of the land that has been acquired by the City of Terrell by help through the TIRZ. We want to bring this to your attention because the number one goal with the City of Terrell, and before we can move forward with any infrastructure or any elements of Town Square, whether that be a library or even streets, we're going to have to address the drainage in this area. Definitely stormwater. We're having to enhance our stormwater efforts. We're having to add culverts and push all of the water over to the new Highway 34. So the City of Terrell, through our Stormwater Fund, has approved the design plans. for this drainage study, and so we hope to next year follow that up with moving towards the next phase of having the drainage addressed in this area.
And this is across the tracks, South Terrell.
Yes, ma'am. So this is, again,
The blue, is the blue lines, the blue squigglies water?
yes, ma'am.
Now,
That's the channeling for the water. Yes, ma'am.
it's pretty, I don't know how the city is going to do it, but I drive across down those streets, and the streets don't even, some of these streets don't even allow for 2 cars
Yes.
to pass. And the people that live in these neighborhoods have problems driving and the water and the drainage.
And that's our number one goal, is to relieve some of the drainage issues in this entire area by adding the stormwater. Again, that was part of the goal in the land acquisition, is being able to configure the drainage in that area. Once the drainage is addressed, that also means new streets. It means new culverts. It means a way to address the stormwater throughout that entire neighborhood. The entire drainage plan encompasses this whole area. It's not just for Town Square, it's for the entire area.
And are the people who live there, are they going to be made aware of this?
Absolutely, yes. Since I've been here, we've had, as you probably can guess, we get several phone calls about the project, about the status. We've worked through a lot of community concerns, and anytime that we're able to talk to them and our council members are out visiting with these property owners, I think that us being able to go in and alleviate some of these problems is definitely beneficial for them.
Excuse me, isn't this District 2? No. I want to go on the record and say, no, that is not happening. And we will take that up at another time.
No, I understand. I was just simply going to comment that my office definitely takes a lot of the phone calls, especially as it questions some of the future Town Square properties. So I've tried to communicate as much as possible as well.
No, I'm not saying the city doesn't. I'm saying District 2 representative does not do that.
I understand.
That's all.
Okay. So just to give you a little update and kind of trace back some of the projects that we've been working on for quite some time, everyone has heard the term complete streets as it relates to Highway 80. So this is just to kind of remind you, we had a town hall back in February. This is when we first introduced several options to the community. I think the hardest part about communicating through these town halls, and also the process that it takes to get things with TxDOT, is you give options and you want to show people concept plans, but we all know that TxDOT could be 5 or 10 years away from actually constructing. So, but what we definitely want to do is make sure that we've designed something that our community is happy with and something that TxDOT would adopt. So in working with Kimley Horn, who is also our consultant for our quiet zones, because we have grouped these 2 projects together, we came up with several options back in February. We had town hall meetings. We went and met with several groups. We heard back from definitely our downtown owners, property owners, and tenants. We all know our existing conditions. After all of the meetings and all of the concern, I think one of the biggest decisions that we wanted to hear back from the community is the on-street parking. and where we could have expanded the size of the sidewalks by eliminating the on-street parking. That was definitely something that concerned our citizens as well as our downtown owners. So we've kind of come up with a hybrid, which is we will still provide on-street parking. We're still looking at some sort of median, but possibly taking out the left turn lanes between Francis and Adelaide. So you would still be able to turn left at Rockwall and Virginia, but it would allow for more space between those 3 blocks without eliminating the parking. So Kimley Horn is working through several different concepts. I kind of wanted to show y'all the just the cross-section and the measurements that we're looking at right now. And again, what we would have to do is take these options to TxDOT, make sure that they approve with the right-of-way and the widths of the lanes that we're discussing, and we'll make sure that any landscape that goes in will also satisfy whatever decision we were able to bring back to the community in TxDOT. The other hot topic, obviously, was the one-way couplet, which is still on the table. So we've done a hybrid. We keep the 4 lanes, but we give ourselves a little bit of buffer space, and we're landscaping downtown plus the parking. The other option is the one-way couplet, which would be one direction on Moore, and then you would have a 2-lane opposite direction on Nash. And this obviously provides for very large sidewalks, still having plenty of room for buffer and the parking spaces. But, you know, we're still investigating the challenges of what that means along Nash and also the right-of-way that we have. And ultimately, it would be TxDOT's decision as to whether or not they wanted to bring that on system.
What are y'all, you know, back in my youth, when they redid Moore Avenue last time, we did have a vibrant downtown. You know, so when we did that, downtown kind of died, along with the big package stores that moved into it.
Right, yeah.
Help. The downtown kind of died.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they haven't made a total comeback since, but will this totally, I mean, what kind of measures y'all making to make sure that the business owners will still be in business after 2 years of construction or whatever?
Right. So depending on the design that moves forward with TxDOT, we've already talked to them about the lane closures and what would that mean, because luckily we do have the extra space. And so we could, you know, do we go in and remove the medians first to make sure that we still are able to maintain some type of parking in front until we can officially move to one direction or the other? We've talked through a lot of different scenarios. I think the key to this entire project is that we need to almost be shelf-ready for TxDOT and Highway 80, because we don't know when exactly TxDOT would need to rebuild Highway 80, but we would rather have a design that we have gotten feedback from on the community. Again, this would take a lot of effort from TxDOT as well as grant opportunities. So this is nothing that I wouldn't even project would be under construction within the next 5 to 10 years. But I think that it is something that we have to prepare for, because we do know that Highway 80 will have to be reconstructed.
So Highway 80 needs to be reconstructed. The question is, are the business owners involved in this downtown Terrell Complete Streets project?
Yes, ma'am. So
The chamber, the businesses, because I don't think I heard you answer, is this going to be the same as it was years ago? Because when you start the construction, people are not, first of all, people are not going to be attentive, or they're going to be upset. That's a given. The thing is, the businesses that we are trying to bring, you know, to thrive, how are we, what is their discussion on the potential of what's going to happen to those businesses once the construction starts 5 to 10 years from now? That's, I think, for those business, the new coffee shop, the new restaurant, soiree, these are viable businesses, and citizens, being who they are, do not like construction or any inconvenience. And I really don't want to see our downtown die.
Right. No, I definitely do not either. I do think that when this does occur, we're going to be in a better position for our property and business owners. You know, we're trying to think forward about the additional parking lots, where we are today versus where we were last time when Highway 80 was reconstructed. We now have a brand-new north and south alley, which provides for additional parking. We have head-end parking at each of our side streets, which we did not have before. So we have more mobility in downtown than we did several years ago. And so I think that's kind of key in making sure that we continue to prepare for additional parking needs, making sure that Complete Streets and South Alley is where it needs to be before Highway 80 goes under construction, so that we're able to move that traffic both directions. And again, having South Alley, having the North Alley, and then having those side streets open, I think within every block you would have the possibility to still access your stores. And so we have a small business meeting that happens at the chamber every month. We had the town hall meeting. We've had some small group meetings when we had like the 5 different concepts and kind of walked them through the thought process, listened, and, you know, were able to explain what we foresee that construction looking like. Absolutely, it would be a nightmare. But our job is to make sure that the mobility stays downtown and that we're not completely shut down, but that we're able to get traffic from one side to the next. And so I think having both of those alleys fully accessible and our side streets is going to be a huge difference than what they experienced years ago. This is the cross-section of Nash. Again, same thing. If we had 2 lanes, you would have parking. You would also have the larger sidewalks and traffic flow in that direction. When we look at the US 80 during our transitional zones, so with all the parking lots and with the medians and all the landscape, that's your downtown core. Your transition zones are those Highway 80 coming in and leaving Terrell. So it would be your traditional curb, 4-lane with parkways. And then the proposed spur 226, Old 34, same thing. We would have 4 lanes of traffic with turn lanes, wider sidewalks, just so we can get some pedestrian elements along Virginia. That brings me to Quiet Zones. Quiet Zones is a project that we also started with Kimley Horn. The clock started ticking whenever we were approved for our diagnostic testing. We have met with FRA and UP during the diagnostic testing. We go to each of the crossings and they look at the improvements that the city is proposing to make. The majority of our, not majority, 100% of our improvements to the crossings are for pedestrian and also auto safety. And so because of that, we're able to build these crossings for safety purposes, which would entail at the end of the construction would make them quiet zone applicable. So FRA and UP both admitted that there were some maintenance and there were some definitely needed upgrades at these crossings, as UP has not done any upgrades to the crossings either. And so once we have a final design, we'll bring that back to you. But right now we are going through design and it looks like we will be applying for a CRISI grant, hopefully in January, which would be for the funding of the actual construction of these zones. So I'm going to give you just a small example of one of the crossings. It requires a much heftier median. You have double arms at each of your crossings. It's going to require some pedestrian fencing, especially through our downtown. So there's quite a few safety elements that will go into these crossings before the horns can stop.
Now, didn't the road bond program funded quiet zones for Terrell, right?
Yes, yes.
So, but they didn't fund all of them, and that's why you're asking the TIRZ?
No, we're not asking the TIRZ for anything. This is just really an update of everything that's going on downtown. And yes, the county bond program dedicated funds for the Quiet Zone program, which has allowed us to get to this point with the diagnostic testing and going into design. So we will be construction ready for a grant because of the county's interlocal agreement. So that is the last of my downtown updates. I just kind of wanted to give y'all an overview of everything that's been going on and just see if y'all have any questions or recommendations or anything else that you'd like to hear about in the future.
Well, if no questions, was that part of the 10-year capital plan?
That was just the downtown update, yeah.
Moving into 6.4, discuss 10-year capital plan.
So before you in your packet is the recently submitted 10-year capital plan that Sims has been working on with the city council. So I was just going to go through some of the highlights, some of the projects that have been completed through past funding. Of course, we've got the INS that has taken care of some of our street repairs. We also have recently purchased a new animal adoption facility, and we will be budgeting a rehab for that. TIRZ number 1 had the borrow for the land acquisition for Town Square and the downtown project. Paddock's borrow was for park lighting and some restrooms that were added. And then we have several utility projects that we have completed over the past few years. Yes, ma'am.
So we got the new bathrooms for the parks.
Mm-hmm.
We got one for the pool. They put that one in, and then there's more coming.
Yes, there's more ordered.
Yes, that's good news.
Yes, so all of that should be completed by fiscal year '24. They've all been ordered.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of scheduling the installation. So kind of a breakdown of the debt series, which will tell you what those major projects were. This goes all the way back to 2011. You have your police headquarters, North Alley, the AMI meter project that the city of Terrell did. Most recently was the land acquisition in the Jameson Metro. We have South Alley, which we will get started with within the next couple of months. We're replacing all of the utilities, including the franchise utilities along South Alley, pump stations, and the sewer project along Highway 205. So all of those are all a list of the COs that have already been released by the city of Terrell. By category, we're looking at approximately 11.4 in water, 7 million in sewer, 7 million in streets, 20 million in facilities. This is focusing in on the fiscal year 2023 borrow. As y'all may have heard, the city council is considering a borrow for streets and facility improvements. And so we wanted to kind of give you an update on what all that entails. I do want to let y'all know that some of the items that are included in the list of potential projects would be TIRZ eligible. So we've included the fire station, which is absolutely TIRZ eligible. Some of the street repairs within the TIRZ would be eligible. We have several local streets around town that we will be taking care of. But some of the bigger projects are going to be Apache, which Chief Lee Corey will talk about here in just a little bit. Newton's going to be a major roadway, especially there within the town square area. So there's just some prep work and a lot of street and drainage that's got to be taken care of. With our facilities, we are looking at a fire station number 3 and some possible renovations to station number 2.
Hey, you made the statement TIRZ eligible.
Mm-hmm.
You're going out selling bonds to do this stuff, but you could get the funding through the TIRZ if y'all ask.
If we ask, yes, yeah.
You're not planning on doing that?
No, I was just, part of our financial plan, there would be possibly some projects that would be eligible for TIRZ, because when we go into the next slide, part of his 10-year plan, you will see the TIRZ name, in fiscal year '24. We were just trying to plug in as we're going through the construction timeline of when we think borrows would happen. And so I wanted to make sure that we said that up front. This is not, gosh, would you please make sure that you're borrowing $4 million in fiscal year '24? But just to kind of let you know, there's layers of projects over the next 10 years that will probably be brought forward to you. And so we're always trying to be cognizant of the different funding sources and the different partners that we could have for these projects. So in '24, we were still looking at adding to our street program, starting some of the preliminary work with our library and pump station, State Highway 205, I-20, lots of utility and drainage projects coming up in the next couple of years too. Fiscal year '25, we're looking at a paddock complete streets and quiet zone match. We think in fiscal year '25, that could be when we're possibly ready for, if not Highway 80, maybe Spur 226 with TxDOT, because it's a shorter segment, and it could be something that we could get moving forward. And then also that would be the appropriate year that we would find out about any grant matches that we might need for the quiet zones. And again, lots of utilities every year. And it goes from there. In '26 or later is kind of where we've slated for the library. Again, nothing is set. We're just making sure that these projects show up. We definitely, you'll see the airport master plan show up on the City of Terrell's radar in the next couple of years. They've recently adopted a new master plan, and you'll see lots of things coming through there. And we're also proposing in the future a fire drill and field administration for the fire department. And so we know with the growing population that public safety is always going to have to be on the target. So we're making sure we don't lose sight of these projects over the next 10 years. 28, again, maybe some matching funds. That may be the time when we're actually ready for the town square green space to become a park. The following year, if we're really good with all of our fire stations, it may be time to look at where Station 1 moves. Again, just making sure that we've captured projects over the next 10 years. So the big key is when you get to the last page, this capital project plan, our 10-year plan, encompasses $295 million, and it's broken down by those major categories. And so it's going to take a lot of work by council and definitely some community input and obviously our partners to move forward. And of course, we still have our list of things that didn't make the 10-year plan, so.
Well, a lot of this debt is, how to say it, this is not an obligation yet or anything else. And I don't know, is this a part of what a lot of the drama is that you hear about? We're broke, the city of Terrell's broke, or spending too much money and all that. They need to understand that as the town grows and the industry moves in, tax revenues, all that stuff increases to afford this. And you can't really do this. You can't sell bonds unless you can pay the bonds.
Unless you can, yeah.
You have a good rating. So this is what's causing a lot of the drama that's out there. This is planning.
It's a big number to swallow, but yeah.
It sounds bad, but it's not in the long run. It's not a done deal.
Right, exactly. This is more of we know that these are our needs.
I know where you're going.
Right, yeah. So, any other questions or comments? I know it's a lot, but I wanted to make sure that y'all had at least a bird's eye view of kind of everything that's going on. And then, of course, Sims will come back and kind of really hone in on, the next few years with the TIRZ. But I did want to be able to give y'all a big picture of the projects that are going on around town as well as the downtown area.
I appreciate the hard work that went into this. And, yeah, but there's no but to the city. I'm amazed at how much information citizens don't have for whatever reason they don't have it. But planning is the key.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate the hard work.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll move into 6.5, discuss Fire Station 3 and Apache Trail update.
Oh, I love the logo.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I'm going to kind of give you an update on where we're at with Fire Station 3, kind of what our plans are. So back in 2021, we had a fire station master planning study done. And it came back and showed that we need to relocate, both Fire Station 1 and 2, also build a third fire station, and make sure that with that station, we have the equipment and the manning and the personnel staff with. Also, to build a credible training facility, because there's not really one in Kaufman County. So that was one of the justifications to move forward with this, along with others, and we'll go through those. Currently right now, City of Tyrrell has an ISO, public protection classification of 2. That classification is on a scale from 1 to 10, and is determined by the evaluation of 4 specific areas, which is like communications, your fire department, water supplies, and community risk reduction is one of the is one of the areas as well. ISO is what it used to be called the key rating back in the day, but it's what kind of sets the insurance premium rates that citizens and commercial pay for fire insurance. It's a rating that how your department's protection is. 1 being the best, and 10 basically meaning there's no recognized fire protection. As the city grows, we have to be able to maintain that 2 rating, so that those premiums stay the same, and we're still able to provide the protection that we need to provide. One of the big parts of ISO is when they're grading the fire department, because it counts for the most amount of points, the 50 points. And of that, so it's broken down into other areas like our fire engines, equipment, our engines, our ladder trucks, our reserve apparatus. But it also looks at our deployment analysis, which is 10 points, which goes basically to NFPA 1710. How do we conform with it? And then also like a training facility, that's 15 extra points. So right now, like I said, we're at 2, and we want to try to maintain that 2. If for some reason we was to drop, now we had our last ISO rating was in 2017, and we're due for them to come back out again. If we was to drop from say a 2 to a 3, commercial property would probably see around approximately a 2% increase in their tax rate, or not the tax rate, but their insurance rate. But property owners could see up to an 8% increase. So it's important that we try to maintain that 2 rating. Also, our call volume. Now, looking back from, 2020 and then up to 2022, we've had about a 34.5% increase in the amount of calls that we're receiving. Also, along with that is the increase in our response times. Right now, our response times, we run an average of about 6 minutes, 14 seconds. We'll get into 1710 here in a minute, but we need to try to keep that around 4 minutes. So a lot of it is, there's more traffic on the road. Some of it's the distance that we're covering. Another reason why moving a station strategically in another spot, would help reduce that number. That's some of the reasons why when the station study was done, they were looking at our stations and the coverage of those areas, using that 4 minute as the kind of the test. It showed that station 1 and 2 are too close together, so there's a lot of overlap. Because of that overlap, we're not using those stations to their best potential, which if they're spread apart. So that was the reason why station 1 and 2 needed to be moved. Also, station 1 was built, I think, for 2 firefighters, and we got 4 stuffed in it right now. Station 2 is why it's on the list to have some renovation stuff done to it, so that we can try to maybe squeeze out 10 more years out of it. So 1710 is really considered the industry standard. What 1710 is, NFPA 1710, is organization and deployment of fire suppression operations, EMS, and special operations for career fire departments. It defines the minimum requirements for resources deployment for fire suppression, EMS, and special operations, while also addressing the firefighter occupation safety and health part of it. The standards set performance objectives that must be met to become compliant. These areas are like your alarm answering times. So they set these time standards that cities tried to meet. So alarm answering time is, from the time the call comes in until somebody picks it up and starts taking the call, it's 15 seconds 95% of the time, and then 40 seconds 99% of the time. You have alarm processing time. That's the time that it takes, to pick it up, take the call, and then get it the right units headed that way. It's 64 seconds 90% of the time, then 80 seconds 95% of the time. Then we get into turnout time. Turnout time is specific to the fire department. It's once we receive the call until the wheels turn on the apparatus, until we start rolling out. So it's 60 seconds for EMS calls and 80 seconds for fire calls. The other part they look at is our first arriving engine on scene. That's where I was mentioned earlier that it's 4 minutes. Currently for us, like I said, in 2022, our first arriving engine is about 5 minutes and 52 seconds. So again, that placement of stations help assist with that. Then they look at the complete initial full alarm assignment as far as the requirements. And it depends on, they break it down into hazard levels. So you have low, medium, and high hazard. Low and medium, it's kind of your structure fire, your house fires. So initial full alarm assignment for low to medium is 8 minutes. That full alarm assignment, we'll get to that here in a minute, but I'll tell you how many people, which is, that we have to have on scene within that time period. High hazards is 10 minutes and 10 seconds. So for our initial alarm assignment for Terrell, which we're trying to make that 8 minutes or less, we have to count on outside agencies to come in to assist us to get to that number of personnel that we need, which for a low to medium is 15 firefighters. So we have to use 40, and we use the volunteer fire department. TIRZ. However, Forney, their average response to us is around 14 minutes, 54 seconds. And the volunteers has been about 11 minutes. So we're not making that 8-minute mark as well. They also look at, 1710 looks at your staffing of your engines and trucks. And again, that goes to your geographic area and what you're running on. But for most, it's 4 men on the engine, 4 men on the truck.
And the engine is the big truck with the ladder?
No, that's the truck.
That's the truck.
Well, really, it's both now, because we have Quints. Back in the day, and he'll remember this, an engine was considered a pumper. It didn't have, a ladder that would raise up or anything like that. And a truck was the one that had the ladder on it. Well, now they come up with Quints that have both. They have a pump and a ladder. We have a Quint, so it can function in either role, basically. So when we're looking at, a 4-man engine, 4-man truck, our average in 2022 was about 3.5 people, and that's because people take off and things like that. So for that initial alarm, like I said, for a low hazard, it's 15 firefighters. For a medium hazard, it jumps up to 28 firefighters, and from a high hazard, it runs to 43 firefighters. Again, right now, we're hitting 14 firefighters, so we're 1 shy, and we're not making it in that 8-minute response time. Add another station, that gives us another engine with 4 personnel on it. That's going to assist us to get to that number.
Well, to get to that number, you're taking risks that you're going to get. You're rolling the dice that those people are going to show up because you're depending on another entity.
Exactly.
That might well have a fire themselves or emergency, and you're depending on volunteers. They might be at work, and nobody can get.
Exactly. It's better to be self-sufficient and be able to take care of, especially a 1-alarm assignment. That's kind of our goal, is to get to a point that we can handle a 1-alarm assignment without any outside assistance. We have a ways to go, but we're working towards getting there. So the steps that we've already taken. So Resolution 2053 went to council, and they signed on January the 17th. And it approved us the purchase of 2 additional custom engines. Now, one's a replacement for an aging piece of equipment that we have, but we were able to purchase a second one that's designated for fire station number 3. Right now, the engines, to have a apparatus built, is running almost 2 years now just to get it, where that's only a few years ago it was less than a year you could get one. But with COVID and all the supply chain issues, it's pushed those numbers out, those times out. So we was able to work with council for them to understand that if we go ahead and order it now, then when the station's built, we'll have apparatus ready to put in it. And then we took to council, and they also approved us the right to go ahead and apply for FEMA's SAFER grant, which is staffing for adequate fire and emergency response. When I came to Terrell in 2018, they had already applied and was awarded that grant, and we were able to hire 9 firefighters at that time. The way that grant works, especially right now, is that the grant itself will fund these firefighters for 3 years, their salaries. You still have to buy their everything else that goes along with it. But as far as their salary part, that's being taken care of. And after that 3rd year, then the city has to pick up those salaries. So our plan is for this FEMA grant we have applied for is to hire 10 personnel. That's not the full number of personnel that we're going to need for this station, but 15 is going to be that number. But I'm trying to bring them in basically a 2-year process so that, you know, I don't have them stacked up like cardboard and no place to put them. So. Other things that we've done is CMA has been selected and approved by council for the Fire Station 3 project, the build. And that was done on June the 13th of this year. And then, so what went before council on June the 27th was, approval, for their approval for authorization of publication of the notice of intent, to issue certificates of obligation, which included Fire Station number 3 and Apache Trail Road work and repairs. And what kind of encompass Fire Station number 3, it also includes the possibility of that training facility that we talked about, fire administration, and the renovation. Some money's in there for the renovations of our existing Fire Station number 2. We're also in the process trying to finalize a land acquisition for Fire Station number 3. Let's see, and then soon we'll go before council for approval for the architectural firm and engineering firm, which is selected from RFQs that's already been submitted, for the work on Fire Station 3 and Apache Trail renovation work. So what's left to be done is for council for final approval for the CO, for the FY23 borrowing, which includes the fire station, the Apache Trail work, also the renovations to Fire Station 2, and those items. And then also for council to approve to apply for next year's FEMA SAFER grant to hire the additional 5 personnel. Now, interesting that the SAFER grant is going through sunset, so we'll have to wait and see whether or not it survives or not. Originally, with that SAFER grant, the way it was funded was not 100% for 3 years. It went 75% for the first year, 75% for the second year, then only 45% for the third year. During COVID, there was such a shortage of fire and EMS. They went in and made it 100% for 3 years. A lot of people took advantage of that. This is kind of the timeline that we've been trying to adhere to. Council's probably seen this enough that they throw up when they see it again. But so far we've been able to stay online or in line with it. We're hoping we should know something on the FEMA grant that we've applied for by September, whether or not we're going to be awarded that or not. I think we'll meet the qualifications. Shouldn't be an issue, but you never know. When that happens, we've already, as you see at the bottom, we've already ordered these 2 new fire apparatus. We feel like we'll receive them, the beginning of 2025. And if we are lucky enough to get the grant, we'll start that hiring process probably in October with the 9 additional. And then, as you can see by the line, it can take a while to get the 10 of those folks in. The 2 lines running up and down from October to April into 2025, So we get the engines here. If things work out right, we'll have enough personnel to at least get that engine in service. And then we'll try to run it out of Station 2 so that we can start some relief from all the calls. You know, one of the other numbers that we really pay attention to, or I do, is what they call overlapping calls. Overlapping calls are how many times that you have both apparatus out and another call drops. Last year we were 49% of the time, so half of the time we were hitting calls when all the apparatus were already assigned to another. Now we've got creative with that, and 2 years ago I was able to get battalion chiefs. So we break them away and they'll take a firefighter with them if it's an EMS call, and so they can make that third call. Also, we have administrative staff that are paramedics, our deputy fire marshal and our fire marshal, and sometimes we have to reach out to them and they have to catch these calls. So right now we're keeping the wheels on, but we need to plan ahead, look forward, get this other station in with these additional people so that we can, we can get a relief to the other two stations and we can speed up our response times. Any questions?
Have you had any pushback, Chief, on the new station? If it's already, if I'm not mistaken, it was approved to go ahead?
It's just part of the CO plan, if the CO gets approved.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that was advertised in the paper?
Mm-hmm.
And that is to get you the money for that? What is a CO exactly?
That certificate of obligation, it's the debt limit that was talked about earlier.
Okay.
That 27 million for 27 what? Or something for 2023 that has that station in it.
Okay.
The station, the road work on Apache Trail, which would be needed, so we don't tear these trucks up running up and down. I mean, there's some holes you can lose a truck in, but then also it had money in there for potential land buy for the drill field and Station 2 renovation so that we can get it up and going.
Okay, thank you.
If no other questions, we'll go into 6.6, discuss FY24 budget for TIRZ number 1, 2, 3, 4, and the Power Center.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to pass on this one. Staff needs a little more time to put that together.
Okay. Discuss meeting schedules. I think we already got them set, don't we?
Yes, so I just sent you all an email. Our next dates are Wednesday, August 9th and Wednesday, August 16th.
And discuss 7.1, discuss and consider TIRZ number 3 agreement for Eastland Business and Park.
We are going to pass on this as well.
All right.
Okay.
So we're adjourned. That's it.